This video is about graphing linear inequalities on the coordinate plane and identifying the solution set of a linear inequality. So when we're graphing linear inequalities, it's nearly the same as graphing a y equals mx plus b, except there's two new rules. So first we have to pay attention to the symbol to decide what kind of line. If we have a less than symbol or a greater than symbol, we're going to use a dashed line. And we want to use a dashed line because we don't want to include these values as solutions, just like we would leave an open circle on a number line. When we have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we are going to use a solid line because we do want to include these values as solutions, just like when we use our solid dots on the number line. And then remember, we need to shade all of our solutions because there's multiple points that will work to make the inequality true. So if we have a greater than symbol, which is a greater than or equal to, we are going to shade above of our line. And if we have a less than or a less than or equal to symbol, then we are going to shade below the line. So number one, we have y is greater than 2/3 x minus 5. So in this case, our slope is 2/3, and our b value, the start point, is 0, -5. Remember, we always start on the y-axis. So we're going to go to 0, -5 on the y-axis. I'm going to use my slope up 2/3, and I'm going to go all the way across my graph. Then I need to shade. So first I need to figure out what type of line. So because it's a greater than symbol, there's no line, so we're going to have a dashed line. So we're going to have a line that has some gaps in it. And then because it's a greater than sign, we're going to shade above the line. So above the line would be all of this area. So we're just going to roughly shade so that all of these points are solutions. Number two, y is less than or equal to -4x plus 6. So in this case, our slope is -4/1, and our b value is 0, 6. So I'm going to go to 6 on the y-axis. I'm going to go down 4/1 all the way across my graph. Then looking at my symbol, this time I have a less than or equal to symbol. So this is going to be a solid line because there's a bar underneath my inequality, and I'm going to shade below the line. So I'm just going to connect this line with a solid line with no gaps. I'm going to shade below. So if I get confused, below would be like if we were hanging from the line like they were monkey bars. So this is our below the line section. So we're going to shade this whole half of our graph. Number three, we have 3x plus y is greater than -6. So before I graph, I need to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Remember that -3x and -6 are not like terms, so we're going to rewrite the equation. Y is greater than -3x minus 6. So in this case, my slope is -3/1, and my b value is 0, -6. So I'm going to go to -6 on the y-axis. I'm going to go down 1/3. Now, because I only have one dot, and I want to make sure this is an accurate line, I'm going to use my slope going the other direction so that I can have more points to help me make a better line. So instead, I'm going to go up 3, left 1 to make a nice long line. Then, because it's a greater than symbol, it's going to be a dashed line. I'm going to connect it with a dashed line. And then because it's greater, we are going to shade above our line. So this whole half that's above the line is going to be shaded. Number four, in order to solve for y, the first thing I need to do is subtract 5x from both sides. So I get 10y is greater than or equal to -5x plus 80. I'm going to divide by 10 with everything. and reduce. So we have y is greater than or equal to negative 1/2 x plus 8. So in this case, my slope is negative 1/2 because it's the number in front of x, and my b value is 8, so 0, 8. So on the graph, we're going to go to 8, and then we're going to use our slope. So we're going to go down 1 over 2 all the way across my graph. Then look at the symbol. It's a greater than or equal to, which means it's going to be a solid line, and we are going to shade above. So I'm going to connect this as a shaded line or a solid line, and I'm going to shade for the graph above my line. Number 5, to solve for y, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to add 6x to both sides. Negative 2y is less than or equal to 6x plus 14. And then we're going to divide by negative 2. Now remember, when we divide by a negative number, just like when we are solving for one variable, we have to flip our inequality sign. So instead of it being y is less than, it's now going to be y is greater than or equal to negative 3x minus 7. So in this case, my slope is negative 3 over 1, and my y-intercept is 0, negative 7. So I'm going to go to negative 7 on my graph. I'm going to go down 3 over 1. That only gives me one dot, so I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go up 3, left 1, just to get a better line with more points. And then I'm going to look at my sign. So it's a greater than or equal to, which means it's a solid line. And then because it's greater, we are going to shade above. Now, with number 4 and 5, there were a couple questions underneath that says, are these points a solution? So we need to look at the point and figure out, is it in the shaded region on that graph? So number 5, it says, is 2, 4 a solution? So if we look at our graph, 2, 4 is right here, and 2, 4 is not in the shaded region, so it's not a solution. So we would say no, because it is not in the shaded region. So then it wants 3 solutions that are. So remember that if a point is on the solid line, that it's a solution. So one point that we could have would be 2, 7. And then we can also have points somewhere in the shade area. So another point I could pick is 6, 7. And another point I could pick would be 9, 5. Now there's lots of different possibilities. Those are just 3 of them that would be solutions because they're either on a solid line or in a shaded region. Number 5, is 2, 4 a solution for this one? So when I look at this, 2, 4 is right here, and it's in the shaded region, so this would be a solution. So we would say yes, because it's in the shaded region. And then it wants 3 more solutions. So another solution, remember, is something that is on the line because it's a solid line. So we could have negative 3, 2. Another point we could have right here in the shaded area could be 5, negative 8. And another point we could have could be over here in the shaded region, which would be 7, 7. Now let's look at graphing inequalities with x and y equations. So when we have y is greater than or is less than or equal to negative 5, remember that a y equation goes through the y-axis, so it's a horizontal line. So we're going to go to 5 on the y-axis, and we're going to draw a line. So we need to look at this. Because it's less than or equal to, it's going to be a solid line. So we're going to draw our solid horizontal line. Then because it's a less than, we would shade below the line. So we're just going to do a rough shading below our inequality. Number 7, we have negative x is less than -2. So this time we first need to divide by -1 on both sides, so we get x is greater than 2. So we're going to go to 2 on the x-axis. Looking at the greater than symbol, that means it's going to be a dashed line. So I'm going to have a dashed vertical line. Remember that x lines are always vertical. Now this one gets a little bit tricky because there's not an above or below. So think of this as a number line, and because it's greater, we're going to want to shade to the right of that vertical line.